Inside his mansion, billionaire James Peterson was having the worst day of his life. His business deals were falling apart. His girlfriend had just left him that morning, taking half his jewelry with her. And now he was stuck at home with nothing to do except being angry at the world. James Peterson was not a good man. He had made his billions by buying and selling old treasures from around the world, ancient pottery from Greece, golden masks from Egypt, sacred stones from South America. To James, these weren't pieces of human history. They were just expensive things he could buy cheap and sell for huge profits. He didn't care about the stories behind them. He didn't care about the people who had made them hundreds or thousands of years ago. All he cared about was money. Hello friends, thank you so much for stopping by. Please support me by subscribing to my channel, like and share this video to your family and friends. I truly appreciate your kind heart. So let's begin. At 38 years old, James had everything money could buy. His mansion had 27 rooms, each one filled with priceless art and furniture. He owned 12 cars, including a red Ferrari that cost more than most people's houses. His closet was full of suits that cost $10,000 each. But for all his wealth, James was a deeply unhappy man. He had no real friends, only people who pretended to like him because of his money. He had never been truly loved because he had never learned how to truly love anyone else. The worst part about James was how he treated the people who worked for him. He had 8 employees who took care of his house and his business. There was Tom the gardener, Sarah the cook, Michael the driver, and several others. But James treated all of them like they were not real people. He never said please or thank you. He never asked about their families or their lives. To James, his employees were like expensive machines, useful tools that he owned, nothing more. Today, James was feeling especially mean. The rain had trapped him inside and he was bored and angry. When James was bored and angry, he liked to make other people feel bad. It made him feel powerful and important. "Maria!" he shouted loudly from his leather chair. His voice echoed through the empty mansion like the roar of a wild animal. "Get in here right now, I don't have all day." Maria Santos was in the kitchen, washing dishes and trying to stay out of James's way. She had been working for him for 3 long years, and she knew that when he used that tone of voice, it meant trouble. Maria was 50 years old, though she looked older because of all the hard work and worry in her life. Her black hair was starting to turn grey at the roots, and her brown eyes were always tired. She wore a simple blue uniform that James made all his household staff wear, and she carried herself with quiet dignity despite everything she had been through. Maria had come to America from Peru 15 years ago. Back then she had been full of hope and dreams. She thought America would be the land of opportunity she had heard about in stories. She thought her education and her intelligence would help her build a good life. But America had been much harder than she expected. The language was difficult. People looked at her differently because of her brown skin and her accent. And most importantly, no one seemed to care about her degrees or her knowledge. All they saw was a woman from a poor country who needed work. "Yes, Mr. Peterson," Maria said as she walked into the living room. She spoke carefully and politely, like she always did. Over the years, she had learned that James got angry very easily, especially when he was having a bad day. James looked at her with cold, mean eyes. He was sitting in his favorite chair, wearing an expensive suit even though he hadn't left the house all day. In his hand was a glass of wine that cost more than Maria made in a month. Everything about the way he looked at her showed that he thought she was beneath him. "Maria, I'm bored," James said with a nasty smile. "And when I'm bored, I like to have some fun. Today, I want to have some fun with you." Maria felt her heart start beating faster. She had learned that when rich, powerful people said they wanted to have fun with poor people like her, it usually meant they wanted to hurt or embarrass them in some way. But she needed this job. Her family back in Peru needed the money she sent them every month. Her mother was sick and needed expensive medicine. Her younger sister was trying to go to college. Maria couldn't afford to lose this job, no matter how badly James treated her. "What can I do for you, Mr. Peterson?" Maria asked, trying to keep her voice steady. James stood up and walked over to his big safe in the corner of the room. The safe was almost as tall as Maria and was made of solid steel. Inside, James kept his most valuable treasures, ancient artifacts that he had bought from dealers around the world. He spun the combination lock and opened the heavy door. From inside the safe, James pulled out a small, flat stone. It was about the size of a book and looked very old. The stone was dark grey, almost black, and covered with strange symbols that had been carved into its surface long ago. The symbols looked like tiny pictures, little drawings of people and animals and shapes that seemed to tell a story. "Look at this, Maria," James said, holding up the stone like it was a trophy he had won. "I bought this beautiful little rock yesterday. Do you want to know how much I paid for it?" Maria looked at the stone and her heart almost stopped beating. She recognized it immediately. She knew exactly what it was and where it came from, but she couldn't let James see her reaction. She forced herself to keep her face blank and uninterested. "I don't know, Mr. Peterson," Maria said quietly. James started laughing like he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. "I paid $200,000 for this little piece of rock. Can you believe that? $200,000? That's more money than you'll make in your whole life." He walked closer to Maria, holding the stone near her face so she could see all the carved symbols. "The man who sold it to me said it was some kind of ancient writing from South America. He said it was written in a language that nobody alive can read anymore. The language is completely dead. Isn't that funny?" Maria felt sick to her stomach. She wanted to tell James how wrong he was. She wanted to explain what the stone really was and how precious and sacred it was, but she was afraid. What if James got angry with her? What if he fired her? She couldn't risk it. James kept talking, his voice getting more excited and mean. "But you know what the best part is, Maria? Next week, I'm going to sell this worthless rock to a museum for $500,000. Can you imagine that? I'm going to make $300,000 profit on some old scratches that don't even mean anything." He started laughing again, but this time his laughter was cruel and ugly. Maria felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She hated watching this ignorant man make fun of something so important to her people and her culture. "You know, Maria," James said, his eyes lighting up with a terrible idea, "this gives me a wonderful opportunity for some entertainment. Since you come from one of those old countries down south, maybe you can pretend to know what this ancient gibberish says." Maria's hands started shaking. She knew that James was about to do something very cruel to her, but she didn't know how to stop it. "Here's what I'm going to do," James said, pulling out his expensive phone. "I'm going to make you a bet. If you can tell me what this stone says, if you can translate all these meaningless little pictures, I'll give you my entire monthly salary." "That's $30 million, Maria, can you imagine? $30 million for a poor cleaning lady from some backwards village." James started setting up his phone to record a video. "This is going to be absolutely hilarious. I'll post it on all my social media accounts. Watch a simple maid try to read ancient writing. It'll get millions of views. Everyone will laugh at how foolish you are." Maria felt her cheeks burning with shame and anger. She looked at the stone again, and all the symbols seemed to glow in her mind. She knew every single one. She knew the story they told. She knew how sacred and important this stone was to her ancestors, and she couldn't stand watching this cruel man make fun of it anymore. Something inside Maria suddenly changed. All the fear she had been feeling turned into strength. All the shame turned into pride. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her to read the old symbols when she was just a little girl. She thought about her professors at the university, who had told her she was one of the smartest students they had ever taught. She thought about all the years she had spent studying and learning, and how she had let this mean man make her feel small and worthless. "Mr. Peterson," Maria said, and for the first time in 3 years, her voice was strong and clear. "I can read this stone." James stopped setting up his phone. His mean smile got even bigger. "What did you say?" "I said I can read this stone. I know exactly what it says." James clapped his hands together like a child who had just been given a wonderful present. "Oh, this is even better than I hoped. This is going to be the funniest video I've ever made." He pointed his phone at Maria and started recording. "Okay, everyone, you're about to see something amazing. I'm about to ask my cleaning lady to translate an ancient document that has stumped university professors for decades. This is going to be absolutely priceless." James looked directly at Maria, his face full of cruel excitement. "Go ahead, Maria. Tell me and all my followers what this magic rock says. But remember, when you make up some silly story and embarrass yourself, it's going to be on the internet forever. Everyone will see what happens when poor, uneducated people try to pretend they're smart. Maria took a deep breath and closed her eyes for just a moment. In her mind, she could see her grandmother sitting by the fire in their little house in Peru, teaching young Maria to read the ancient symbols by candlelight. She could hear her grandmother's voice saying, "These symbols are not just writing, little one. They are the voices of our ancestors, speaking to us across the centuries." When Maria opened her eyes, they were shining with a light that James had never seen before. She looked at the stone with love and respect, like she was greeting an old friend. "This stone," Maria began, her voice clear and strong, "says the following: I am Pachacutec Inca Yupanqui, the great transformer of the world, the earthquake that reshapes the land. I speak to you from the sacred city of Cusco, the navel of the world, in the year the Spanish call 1438. I have built roads that stretch like golden threads across the spine of the world, connecting every corner of Tawantinsuyu, our empire of 4 directions. I have carved terraces into the mountainsides so that our people may grow food even where the condors fly. I have built the sacred city of Machu Picchu high in the clouds, where it can touch the face of Inti, our father the sun. But stones and roads are not what make a great ruler. Gold and silver are not what make a powerful empire. I have learned that the greatest treasure is not what we take from the earth, but what we give to our people. I have made sure that every child in our empire has enough food to fill their belly and enough warm clothes to keep them safe from the mountain cold. I have built schools where the young ones learn to read the quipu knots and understand the movements of the stars. I have created storehouses filled with grain and potatoes so that when the rains fail or the crops are poor, no one goes hungry. Most importantly, I have taught my people that we are all connected, the rich and the poor, the powerful and the humble, the wise and the simple. We are all children of the same sun and the same earth. The blood that flows in the veins of the emperor is the same blood that flows in the veins of the farmer. The breath that fills the lungs of the priest is the same breath that fills the lungs of the weaver. Remember this always, you who come after me. A ruler who does not serve his people is like a tree without roots. No matter how tall it grows, it will fall when the winds of time begin to blow. True power comes not from making others bow down to you, but from lifting others up so they can stand tall beside you. I have tried to be a father to my people, not just their king. When I am gone, judge me not by the gold I gathered or the enemies I defeated, but by whether the children of Tawantinsuyu sleep safely at night and wake each morning with hope in their hearts. As Maria spoke, something magical happened in the room. Her voice became stronger and more beautiful with each word. The symbols on the stone seemed to come alive, telling their ancient story through her voice. Even though she was still wearing her simple cleaning uniform, Maria looked like a queen as she translated the sacred words of the Inca emperor. When she finished speaking, the mansion became completely silent. The only sound was the rain still falling outside and the tick-tock of the expensive clock on James's mantle. James's phone had slipped out of his shaking hands and crashed onto the marble floor. James's face had turned white as a sheet. His mouth was hanging open so wide that a bird could have flown into it. He stared at Maria like he was seeing her for the first time in his life. That's impossible," James whispered, his voice so quiet that Maria could barely hear him. "You can't possibly know that. You must be making it up. There's no way a cleaning lady could—" Maria shook her head gently. "No, Mr. Peterson, I'm not making up a single word. This stone is written in ancient Quechua, the language of the Inca people. It's approximately 600 years old, and it comes from the ruins of Sacsayhuaman, the great fortress that overlooks the city of Cusco in Peru." She pointed to specific symbols carved into the stone. "See this symbol here? This represents Inti, the sun god, who was the most important deity in the Inca religion. And this symbol represents the sacred mountain, or Apu, which the Inca people believed were the homes of powerful spirits." Maria traced her finger along a line of symbols. "This section here describes the building of Machu Picchu, which Pachacutec ordered to be constructed as a royal estate and religious center. And these symbols down here describe the system of roads and bridges that connected the entire Inca Empire. James felt like the floor was disappearing under his feet. The room seemed to be spinning around him like a carnival ride. But how do you know all this? How could you possibly read ancient writing? Maria looked at him with eyes that were sad but also proud. Because, Mr. Peterson, my full name is Dr. Maria Elena Santos Quispe. I have a PhD in pre-Columbian studies from the National University of San Marcos in Lima, Peru. I also have a master's degree in ancient languages and archaeology from Harvard University here in the United States. James felt like someone had hit him in the head with a baseball bat. He sat down heavily in his chair because his legs couldn't hold him up anymore. That's completely impossible. If you have degrees from Harvard, if you're a doctor, why in the world are you working as my housekeeper? Tears started flowing down Maria's cheeks, but she held her head high with dignity. Because Dr. Maria Santos doesn't pay the rent, Mr. Peterson. Because when I came to America 15 years ago with my degrees and my dreams, no one would hire a brown-skinned woman from Peru to work in their university, no matter how smart she was or how hard she had studied. Her voice began to shake with emotion. Because when my mother got cancer and needed expensive treatments that cost thousands of dollars every month, universities don't give you money immediately. They make you wait months for job applications and interviews while your family suffers. Maria wiped tears from her eyes with the back of her hand. Because when my little brother needed emergency surgery after a car accident, hospitals don't wait for academic job applications to be approved. They want money right away, or they let people die. James felt like his heart was being squeezed by a giant hand. But Dr. Santos, Maria, you're so qualified. You're brilliant. You should be teaching students, not cleaning my house. Maria nodded sadly. You're absolutely right, Mr. Peterson. I should be standing in front of classrooms full of eager students, teaching them about the incredible achievements of my ancestors. I should be writing books and research papers about the amazing engineering skills of the Inca people, who built cities and roads that still exist after 500 years. She looked directly into his eyes. I should be showing the world that the indigenous people of South America weren't just backwards villagers, as you like to call them. They were brilliant mathematicians, skilled engineers, talented artists, and wise rulers who created one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Maria walked closer to James, and he could see the pain and determination in her face. I have published 7 research papers about Inca civilization in academic journals. I have discovered 3 previously unknown archaeological sites in the mountains of Peru. I have translated dozens of ancient documents that help museums around the world understand how the Inca Empire was organized and governed. She gestured toward the stone in James's trembling hands. That stone you're holding? I've seen hundreds like it during my years of research. I've crawled through caves and climbed dangerous mountain paths to find them. I've spent days carefully brushing dirt away from ancient carvings with tiny brushes, documenting every symbol, every line, every sacred word. James felt smaller than an ant. His voice was barely a whisper. Dr. Santos, I don't know what to say. I've been so horrible to you. I've treated you like you were worthless. You offered me your monthly salary if I could translate that stone, Maria said, her voice becoming stronger again. But I don't want your money, Mr. Peterson. I want something that's worth much more than $30 million. What? James asked, afraid to hear the answer. What do you want? Maria's eyes blazed with passion and pride. I want you to understand that the person who has been cleaning your toilets and scrubbing your floors for 3 years is the same person who once gave lectures to students from universities all over the world. I want you to know that the woman you call just a maid has stood in the ruins of Machu Picchu and read the original stone inscriptions left there by Inca engineers 5 centuries ago. She took a step closer to him. I want you to realize that when you make fun of my accent, you're making fun of someone who speaks 5 languages fluently: Spanish, English, Quechua, Portuguese, and French. When you treat me like I'm stupid and ignorant, you're treating someone who has spent her entire life studying, learning, researching, and growing. Maria's voice rose with emotion. Most of all, Mr. Peterson, I want you to understand that every single person who works for you, every person you look down on, Every person you treat like dirt, every person you think is beneath you, they all have stories. They all have dreams and hopes and talents. They all have worth and dignity and value as human beings, regardless of what job they do to survive. James felt tears starting to form in his own eyes. In his 38 years of life, he had never felt so ashamed of himself. Dr. Santos? Maria, I am so sorry. I have been a terrible person. I have been cruel and ignorant and blind. Maria's expression softened slightly. Yes, you have been all of those things. But here's what I've learned in my 50 years of life. It's never too late for a person to change. It's never too late to start treating people with kindness and respect. James looked down at the ancient stone in his hands. For the first time, he saw it not as an expensive object to be bought and sold, but as a sacred piece of human history. This stone, it really belonged to an Inca emperor? To Pachacutec? Yes, Maria said with reverence in her voice. Pachacutec Inca Yupanqui was one of the greatest rulers in all of human history. Under his leadership, the Inca Empire grew from a small kingdom around the city of Cusco to a vast civilization that stretched across most of South America. She pointed to symbols on the stone. But more than his military conquests or his building projects, Pachacutec is remembered for how much he cared about his people. He created a system where the government stored food and supplies for times when crops failed. He built schools and trained teachers. He made sure that old people and disabled people were taken care of. Maria's eyes shone with pride. The message carved on that stone is Pachacutec's reminder to future generations that true leadership means serving others, not controlling them. It means lifting people up, not pushing them down. It means recognizing that every person in your empire, from the richest noble to the poorest farmer, has value and deserves respect. James thought about those words for a long time. The rain outside was starting to slow down, and rays of sunlight were beginning to peek through the dark clouds. Dr. Santos, what would it take for you to forgive me for how I've treated you? Maria smiled, the first real smile James had ever seen on her face. It would take you learning to see all people as human beings, not as servants or tools to be used. It would take you treating everyone with kindness and respect, no matter what job they do or where they come from. And what would it take for you to stay here and continue working for me? James asked hopefully. Maria shook her head gently. I won't be staying, Mr. Peterson. Tomorrow will be my last day working in this house. James felt panic rising in his chest like floodwater. Please don't leave. I'll pay you 10 times as much money. I'll treat you with respect. I'll change everything. Mr. Peterson, Maria interrupted, her voice kind but firm. I'm not leaving because you treated me badly, though you certainly did. I'm leaving because I finally have enough money saved up to do what I've been dreaming of doing for 15 years. What's that? James asked, though part of him was afraid to know. Maria's whole face lit up with joy and excitement. I'm going back to Peru to start a school. A special school where children from poor families can learn about their history and their culture and their heritage. A school where kids can be proud of who they are and where they come from. She clasped her hands together like she was praying. For too long, the children in my village have been taught that their ancestors were primitive and backwards. They've been made to feel ashamed of their indigenous blood and their native language. I want to change that. Maria's voice became stronger and more passionate. I'm going to teach them to read ancient Quechua, just like my grandmother taught me when I was a little girl sitting by the fire. I'm going to show them the incredible cities their ancestors built, the amazing roads they constructed, the sophisticated calendar systems they developed. Tears of happiness rolled down her cheeks. I'm going to help them understand that the blood flowing in their veins is the same blood that flowed in the veins of brilliant engineers, skilled artists, wise philosophers, and great leaders. I'm going to teach them that being poor doesn't mean being worthless, and that their culture and their heritage are treasures more valuable than all the gold in the world. James felt something he hadn't experienced in years, deep, genuine respect for another person. Dr. Santos, that sounds like the most important work anyone could possibly do. It is, Maria said with absolute certainty. At least, it's the most important work for me. It's what I've been put on this earth to do. James stood up and walked slowly to his desk. He pulled out his leather checkbook, the one he used for his biggest business transactions, and began writing. His hand was shaking as he wrote, but he forced himself to make the letters clear and neat. When he finished, he tore out the check and walked back to Maria. "Dr. Santos," he said formally, "you successfully translated that ancient stone. I made you a promise that if you could do that, I would give you my monthly salary. This check is for $30 million, exactly what I promised you." Maria looked at the check and gasped so loudly that it echoed through the mansion. Her legs became weak and she had to sit down in the nearest chair. "Mr. Peterson, I can't possibly accept this much money. It's too much. It's—" "No," James said firmly. "A promise is a promise. You earned this money fairly and honestly. But more than that, you're going to use it to do something beautiful and important." He knelt down beside her chair so he could look directly into her eyes. "Dr. Santos, I want you to use this money to build the biggest and most wonderful school Peru has ever seen. I want you to hire the best teachers, buy the finest books and equipment, and give scholarships to every child who wants to learn." Maria's hands were shaking as she held the check. "Mr. Peterson, do you realize what this means? With $30 million, I won't be able to build just one school. I'll be able to build 10 schools, maybe 20. I can create a whole network of schools across Peru." Her voice was filled with wonder and disbelief. "I can hire teachers who are experts in Inca history and archaeology. I can create museums where children can see and touch real artifacts from their ancestors. I can establish libraries filled with books written in Quechua and Spanish. I can offer full scholarships to brilliant students who could never otherwise afford a university education." James smiled, a genuine warm smile that transformed his entire face. "Dr. Santos, the idea of your money creating all those opportunities for children makes me happier than any business deal I've ever made. It makes me feel like maybe, for the first time in my life, my money is going to do something truly good in the world." Maria looked at him with curiosity and something that might have been the beginning of respect. "Mr. Peterson, I have to ask you something. Yesterday you thought I was just a stupid cleaning lady who wasn't worth your notice. Today you're giving me $30 million to follow my dreams. What changed?" James was quiet for a very long time, thinking about her question. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and thoughtful. "You changed me, Dr. Santos. You taught me the most valuable lesson I've ever learned in my life." "What lesson was that?" Maria asked. "You taught me that every single person has worth and dignity and value, regardless of what job they do or how much money they have," James said. "You taught me that when I treat people badly, I'm not showing how powerful I am. I'm showing how weak and ignorant I am." He gestured toward the ancient stone which was sitting on the table between them. "And you taught me what that great emperor Pachacutec understood 500 years ago, that a true leader serves others instead of using them. That real power comes from lifting people up, not from pushing them down." James's voice became emotional. "For 38 years I've been living like a selfish child, thinking that having money made me better than everyone else. I've been cruel to people who deserved kindness. I've been blind to the incredible talents and stories of the people right in front of me." He looked directly at Maria. "You could have let me continue being ignorant and cruel. You could have just taken my insults and kept quiet. But instead you showed me who you really are. You opened my eyes to the amazing person I had been too stupid and arrogant to see." Maria's expression had completely softened. The anger and hurt in her eyes had been replaced by something warmer. "It's never too late to change, Mr. Peterson. It's never too late to start treating people with kindness and respect." "Will you help me learn how to be a better person?" James asked humbly. "Will you teach me how to use my wealth and position to help others instead of just helping myself?" Maria nodded with a gentle smile. "I'll be living in Peru, but we can stay in touch through letters and phone calls. You can visit the schools we build with your generous donation. You can see for yourself how your money changes children's lives and gives them hope for the future." She stood up and smoothed down her uniform. "But the real work of becoming a better person, that's something you'll have to do yourself every single day. You'll have to choose again and again to see people as human beings worthy of respect. You'll have to choose kindness over cruelty, humility over arrogance, service over selfishness. James nodded seriously. I understand. And I promise you, Dr. Santos, that I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the kind of person you and Emperor Pachacutec would be proud of. 3 months later, on a sunny Tuesday morning, James received a thick envelope from Peru. Inside were dozens of photographs and a long letter written in both Spanish and English. The first photograph showed a beautiful new school building made of local stone and wood with large windows that let in plenty of light. Above the entrance, carved in both Spanish and Quechua, were the words, Dr. Maria Elena Santos School for Cultural Heritage and Indigenous Studies. The next photographs showed Maria standing in front of the school, surrounded by 60 smiling children of all ages. Some were as young as 6 years old, with gap-toothed grins and bright eyes full of curiosity. Others were teenagers, standing tall and proud in their new school uniforms. But it was the letter that made James cry. Dear James, it began. I hope this letter finds you well and happy. I am writing to tell you about the miracle you have made possible. The Maria Santos School opened its doors 1 month ago. Our first class includes 60 students ranging in age from 6 to 16. They come from villages scattered across the mountains, some walking for hours each day just to attend classes. In the mornings, they learn to read and write in both Spanish and Quechua. In the afternoons, they study the history of their ancestors, the great cities the Incas built, the sophisticated farming techniques they developed, the beautiful textiles they wove, the accurate calendars they created. But the most beautiful thing to see is the change in these children's faces. When they first arrived, many of them were ashamed of their heritage. They had been taught that being indigenous meant being inferior. Now, after just 1 month, they walk with their heads held high. They are proud of who they are and where they come from. Yesterday, a 10-year-old girl named Chuya read her first complete sentence in ancient Quechua. When she finished, she looked up at me with tears of joy in her eyes and said, Maestra Maria, now I can talk to my great-great-great-grandmother. That moment alone was worth all the years of struggle it took to get here. We are already planning to open our second school in the village of Ollantaytambo and our third in the sacred valley of the Incas. By next year, we hope to have 10 schools operating across Peru. Eventually, our dream is to create a university where indigenous students can earn advanced degrees in their own cultural studies and then return to their communities as teachers and leaders. None of this would have been possible without your generosity and your changed heart. But more importantly, none of this would have happened if you hadn't been willing to see me as a human being worthy of respect. You asked me once what it would take for you to become a better person. The answer is simple. Keep doing what you're doing. Treat every person you meet with kindness and dignity. Remember that everyone has a story, everyone has value, and everyone deserves respect. The children here are learning the same lesson that Emperor Pachacutec tried to teach 500 years ago, and the same lesson I tried to teach you that rainy day in your mansion, that we are all connected, we are all valuable, and we are all worthy of love and respect. Thank you, James, for learning this lesson with me. Thank you for changing your heart, and thank you for helping me change the world, one child at a time. At the bottom of the letter, Maria had written one final message in ancient Quechua, with the English translation below it. Aini sumakmi. Reciprocity is beautiful. This means that when we help each other, we both become stronger and more complete. When you lifted me up with your generosity, you also lifted yourself up by becoming a better person. This is the way the world should work. Not with some people on top and others on the bottom, but with all of us standing together, supporting each other, growing together. James carefully hung the letter and all the photographs on the wall of his office, right next to the ancient Inca stone. Every single day when he looked at them, he remembered the most important lesson of his life, that the people we think we know the least might be the ones who can teach us the most. From that day forward, James treated every person he met with genuine kindness and respect. He learned the names and stories of all his employees. He funded scholarships for students from poor families. He donated millions of dollars to schools and libraries and cultural preservation projects around the world. and whenever he felt tempted to be cruel or superior or dismissive, he remembered Dr. Maria Santos, the brilliant, dignified woman who had taught him that true wealth comes not from what we own, but from how we treat each other and how we use our gifts to make the world a better place. The ancient stone that had cost him $200,000 turned out to be the best investment he had ever made, not because of its monetary value, but because of the human values it had helped him discover. Dear friends, thank you so much for watching. Please support me by subscribing to my channel, and don't forget to like and share this video. It means the world to me. Take care of yourself and never forget how much you're loved. I can't wait to see you in the next video, sending you all my love.